In the portion of Kedoshim, the Torah tells us, before a blind person, do not put a stumbling block. Now this concept is very simply understood. Someone who's blind, don't put a block in front of him so he trips and falls and hurts himself. It's a very simple passage. It's so simple that one would think that we need no commentary to explain what this means. Yet Rashi, the logician of the Torah, who takes the simple and logical approach to the verses of the Torah, gives a very unusual interpretation for this passage. And he says like this: in front of one who is blind, about the particular matter, do not give advice that is not appropriate for him. And therefore do not say to this person, sell your field and buy yourself a donkey, thus manipulating him to your advantage, and therefore buying or taking the field from him. In other words, the Rashi comes along and says, what is the meaning over here? Before a blind person, don't put a stumbling block. Not that he's literally blind, but rather he's blind about a particular matter. And when it comes to this particular matter, don't put a stumbling block. In other words, don't give him advice that is inappropriate. And Rashi does not suffice by saying that, which that alone would be enough of an interpretation. But Rashi goes on to give an example, as if we don't understand what he said up until now. What is the example Rashi gives? You should know, if the person owns a field, don't tell him, sell your field and buy yourself a donkey. Because by doing so, you are violating this passage of the Torah. In front of a blind person, do not put a stumbling block. And Rashi goes on to conclude, thus manipulating him to your advantage, because you are now going to buy the field that you just told him to sell. Now this is a very beautiful interpretation. But why must Rashi come and give us such an interpretation and not simply translate the pasuk, the passage, the way it is on face value? So the Rebbe asks this question, and the Rebbe in Likutei Sichos explains that Torah in general is very careful about every detail. Every word in Torah, even every letter in Torah is there for a reason, and nothing is extra. And therefore, the Torah, if it already mentioned the concept, generally will not mention that concept a second time. This concept of do not place a stumbling block in front of a blind person, says the Rebbe, the Torah already told us earlier. This concept was mentioned already in Exodus 21, passage 33 and 34. Over there, the Torah tells us about a pit, that a person has to be careful not to leave a pit uncovered in a public domain, so that other people should not fall into the pit. So this idea of falling into a pit in a public domain is very similar to putting a stumbling block in front of a blind person. Because at night, there's no light, so you're basically blind, and you don't see the hole in the ground, and you're going to fall there and you're going to injure yourself. That is the concept of don't put a stumbling block in front of a blind person. And therefore, says Rashi, who analyzes every pasuk of the Torah on the logical level, and tries to rationalize the Torah, he comes along and says, the Torah already told us this law. So if the Torah already told us this law in the previous book of Exodus, what is Torah coming now to add in the book of Leviticus? So Rashi injects a very interesting idea. And he also gives us a lesson of how to give one advice. And says Rashi like this: in front of one who is blind about a particular matter. Do not give advice that is not appropriate for him. In other words, it's not that I'm giving him bad advice. But the problem with the advice is, as Rashi says, it's inappropriate for him. Why? Because it could be that this person, in truth, is a very bad farmer. And in truth, he should not be owning a field. He would do a lot better by being a peddler. He would take a donkey and put a few items on it and go from door to door and sell it. He would be much more successful. And therefore, the advice, in essence, is the correct advice. However, it's inappropriate for him to give the advice. Why? Because the counselor here is not totally objective. On the contrary, he is thinking, the moment I get him to sell his field, I'm going to buy my field. Now, the truth is, this individual who owns the field cannot manage the field. However, if you are giving him advice that you are going to benefit from, then you are not giving him kosher advice. That is not proper advice. And therefore Rashi says, that is a violation of the Torah. In front of one who is blind about a particular matter, do not give him advice. That is inappropriate for him, because you're going to manipulate him and buy the field from him. So even though the advice itself is kosher advice, but the fact that you are going to benefit from your own advice in someone else who is in need, says the Torah, that is inappropriate for him. It's inappropriate for you to give that person advice. On the contrary, to be able to give a person advice, you have to put yourself in the other person's shoes and see it from his vantage point, and you have to remove yourself from the equation completely. And this perhaps answers another interesting thing. The word michshel, stumbling block, is missing the letter vav. Now, the word michshel is mentioned 12 times throughout the 24 books of the Bible. However, it's the only time in this pasuk that the word michshel, the word stumbling block, is missing the letter vav. And the question is why? Why is the word michshel missing the letter vav? The word stumbling block is missing this letter, the letter of vav. So we have a rule: when a word is missing a letter, it shows that the word is incomplete. In other words, there's a diminishment to this stumbling block. And that is, it's not a real stumbling block. As Rashi said, the advice is good advice. So it's not a real stumbling block, but there is a deficiency here, and that is that the giver of the advice is looking out for his advantage. So therefore, it's michshel. It is a stumbling block, but it's not a complete stumbling block. Furthermore, Rashi is telling us here how to give advice. The only time you can give advice is if you are totally objective, which means you are not looking for your advantage. You have to be totally altruistic, and you can't have your hands in the advice. It's interesting that the letter vav is the letter of connection. And therefore, says the Torah, before a blind person, do not put a stumbling block. Don't give such a person advice when there is the letter vav. If you have the letter vav, in other words, if you're connected to the person, or if you are personally connected with the advice, you shouldn't be giving that advice. Only when the vav is missing, when there is no connection here with that individual, but rather you are simply helping the individual because you are looking at it from an objective view, then you're allowed to give advice. Then the advice is kosher. And this teaching is very important, primarily in these weeks between Passover and Shavuos, when we find that 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva perished. It says the Gemara that even though they were great scholars and they were the leading teachers of their generation, however, lo inagu kavod zeh lezeh, they did not honor one the other properly. So therefore, throughout these weeks, we have to look and find ways to help one another and to honor one another properly, and to go beyond the letter of the law, to care for others and to support others, and to find ways to make other people feel more comfortable, and to truly give advice that is befitting a student of Rabbi Akiva. We hope and pray that just like the temple was destroyed because of a lack of brotherly love, through the fact that we love each other unconditionally, this will bring about the rebuilding of the third holy temple. B'mheira b'imenu. Amen.
Amen. Amen.